All right, so Smartsheet best practices presented by Echo Consulting, rules of engagement. Please go ahead and interrupt, ask questions, engage as you want. You will receive a copy of the slide deck via email and the recording. Melissa, are we recording? Yes, we are.
We are.
And then we'll send out a survey on how the webinar was and if it was valuable to you. And aside from that, my name is Molly Yanis. I'm the founder of Echo Consulting. We're a project management services firm, and I'm certified in in Smartsheet as a product expert, and we are a Smartsheet partner. And this is Melissa, our operations manager. So today we're going to do a Smartsheet basics overview, and then we're going to dive right into demonstrations. We're going to pick up some tips and tricks and some of the new functionality that Smartsheet has rolled out. Honestly, in the last couple of months, there's some really exciting new things, especially for project managers, which is again my background. Although I am experienced with Smartsheet implementations outside of project management as well, more in the IT space. Really quick, so today we are going to be focusing on Smartsheet. There are literally hundreds of what are called project management information systems or task management systems. We've kind of provided a little bit of levels in terms of what we consider to be more entry level, small companies oftentimes use these. We've done a lot with ClickUp recently. Trello is pretty well known. Smartsheet is oftentimes grouped in the same class as Monday, Asana, Basecamp, for example. And then we have some of the more enterprise level project management systems, which are usually combined with, some other IT functionality as well. So we've got Rike and Jira, Atlassian, Project, etc. But today we're going to be focusing right on this mid-tier market. We've been working a lot with Smartsheet in the last couple of years. We're really impressed with their roadmap, and we're happy to share some of that with you today. So with that, we asked just a couple of questions. One second. What we were looking for is what your level of experience is. It looks like we have someone that's beginner and advanced. That advanced person is me. And we have a couple of questions. Let's see here. Any questions that are popping up? Nope, no questions right now. So we will keep on going then. And we will move on. So great design is not just a solution, it's the elimination of the problem. So Smartsheet is a platform. I think of it mostly in the terms of project management, but it has built out a lot in the IT space in terms of ticketing. It's also built out a lot in the marketing space. It can be used both for product and project management. And it also is a pretty significant dashboarding capability as well. So it is starting to be used more for enterprise roll-up information and integration of multiple data sources with a easy to use non-developer needed dashboarding component as well. So for Smartsheet basics, before we get into the demo, we want to make sure that you know some of the words that we'll be talking about today. So industry, we're going to be talking about the hierarchy of tasks, predecessor tasks, and dependencies. So this is industry terms, not specific to Smartsheet. Smartsheet uses a series of different terms associated with their different tools. So they use a workspace, which is we'll show it to you, but it's basically a set of different sheets and tools and collaboration of, and it's basically a way to do user management, so that all the same people are have the same permissions to all the data. For Sheet, that is exactly what it sounds like. So it's going to be a task sheet. It's going to look very similar to Excel, but then they'll have different views of that data that we'll be talking about. There's a report, which is pulling data from multiple sheets and demonstrating it. But again, it looks very much like an Excel spreadsheet in most cases, although it does have a GAMP component as well. We'll be looking at a couple of dashboards, solutions, views, automation, which is another way of saying that they have a built-in workflow capability, which is really interesting, and they're adding a lot of capabilities there. And then they have sheet summary information that we'll be talking about as well. So those are kind of some of the key vocabulary pieces that Smartsheet specific will give you we'll walk you through what each of those different tools is in Smartsheet, and then we'll move on from there. Are there any questions at this point? All right, looks like we have one more participant joining. We're going to keep going. Terry, welcome to the webinar. We're just talking about Smartsheet Basics terminology, and we're going to keep going. So, um, so really quick, like in Excel, there's this concept of columns. The piece that I want to mention here is that there is a primary column, and a primary column is always a text number. It is the key column. If you think about it in terms of projects, it would be a project name or a task name or something like that. It is always going to be primary. You'll see as we do the demo that whenever you pull that information from one sheet into a report, it'll always call it the primary column. Even though you can rename that in a sheet. There's different column properties that we're going to be talking about, so you can auto format the columns that you're going to be setting up. So text number, contact list, date, drop down both single and multi-select checkbox symbols, and then an auto number and system, which is, as it sounds, auto numbering, and it also gives you information about when it was created, who created it, when it was modified, and who modified it last. Okay. So there's a lot of different functionality here we'll be showing. There are some additional values in terms of allowing you to restrict data to only be list values. And you'll see some of the UI associated with what it looks like if you're doing different drop downs or symbols. So we'll walk through all that today. So for restricted column data entry, if you restrict it, you can say, for example, that it's only certain or certain dates or something like that. You also have, oh, sorry. Okay, so you can restrict it dates only in the date column, so you can't put a text column, but you can do the same idea in a drop-down list or a checkbox or contact list. So you could say only pick from these contacts, for example. So for views of data, we talked a little bit just about like the sheets and the way that you typically view it. This is very Excel-like. With Excel, if you're used to Gantt chart on the right-hand side, you'll be able to see the Gantt chart of the different tasks that you might have. So this is a combined view. We'll be showing you that today. There's also what's called a card view. It's going to look more like a board or Kanban board or something like you might have seen before. Same data from the same data, different view. There's also a calendar view built in so that you can see it if you're looking at for like a daily, weekly, monthly view. So these are the 4 core views that you can pull of the data. So if you want to put it in via Excel, an Excel-like sheet, but then look at it a couple different ways, you have that ability. We'll show you how to do that. Rows and hierarchy, just to make sure you're familiar with that. So this concept of parent and child tasks, and you can have, I think, up to 7 different levels of tasks. And you actually have the ability to filter content based on the level that it is. So if you're thinking about it from a project or a product standpoint, you might have, for example, a specific feature, which is the primary row, but then the individual behavior underneath it might be here. So we'll show you an example of this, but you can have up to 7 levels of hierarchy within Smartsheet. For the automated workflow, it's called automations. We're going to be talking about it. There's different elements to the workflow. So there's this concept of what triggers the workflow, what conditions need to be met in order for the workflow to run, the action in terms of what's going to happen. So alerts, approvals, requests, and much more, notifications. And then you can have multiple condition paths, and you can have multiple condition paths up here. So it's really a pretty robust non-developer workflow tool for data. And we'll run a couple of examples of automations today. One of the things that I'll mention to you is that Smartsheet does have what are called solution sets. These are pre-built sheets, reports, dashboards, etc., that you can pull from to get you started. So you're not starting from a blank sheet and building everything from scratch. Oftentimes, if you are a newer user, it is easier to start from a solution set that might be close to the use case you're trying to build for, and then edit versus starting from scratch. So I'll show you where to look for solutions, and we can give you a couple of examples. There also are forms that are built into Smartsheet and logic within the forms. So the fields are going to be coming from the columns that you have in your sheet, or you can add new columns via the form. And then you can add logic as well, and we'll show you a couple of examples of that. So you're saying if this is not started, this is the logic for what information you're looking for. If it is already in progress, this is the information we're looking looking for the form. So a couple different things there. And let's keep moving here. Really quick, so if we have a form, this is kind of the typical flow and how you might use some of those key pieces of Smartsheet. So the form enters information into a sheet. The sheet can then move into a reports that pulls information from the sheet as well as other sheets if it wanted to. And then you can use the metric sheet as well, which is basically a very similar concept to Smartsheet where you are pulling in data, you know, VLOOKUPs, COUNTIF functions, if functions to get data. And then these reports and these metrics can all build up into a dashboard. So in this example, a management dashboard. So you're taking only the information that you want from an individual tracker sheet, maybe having multiple sheets that all flow into a single report to consolidate the information. And then in the management dashboard, you have a couple of different graphic visuals. You can have actual reports, and we'll walk you through a couple of examples of a dashboard here. And again, I don't want you to think that you have to start from scratch. There are solutions in Smartsheet that'll get you started. They are free. They're included as part of the Smartsheet licensing that you can pull from and start from there. Any questions on the key pieces or key functionality and tools within Smartsheet?
Well, we have maybe just an example at some point of the conditional, what did you call it? It might have been 2 slides back, but it was conditional direction, conditional path. So that's pretty slick,
Yeah.
especially through automation, because it seems like it's running on if-thens or something
It
similar.
is very complex if-thens, and you can do multiple condition blocks. I'll show you an example of we'll build out a workflow together. You're going to like it. If you've done any workflowing, I mean, I've done a lot in Microsoft Flow. I've done workflows before. I find the Smartsheet one to be very robust and also just easy to use for a non-developer. I always call myself someone that is only technical enough to be dangerous. And I can be a full-fledged architect in Smartsheet. So reports, we'll dive into this in the demo. I don't want to go too much, and we can kind of go back from there. So I'm going to pause this and actually jump into Smartsheet. Let's see here, Melissa, where am I? Here we go. Okay, so let's do a really quick orientation. Terry, if you don't mind calling out, we did a quick survey in the beginning. Are you an entry-level Smartsheet user or are you more advanced?
Probably somewhere in between. I've used it, but I've never created workflows or anything like that. I've created sheets and I use it a lot, but nothing too crazy.
Perfect. Nope, that's great. Okay, so we're going to start from a sheet and we're going to kind of just give a really quick orientation of where you are. So let's go to home. Okay, so on the left-hand side, right, you have a couple of different pieces. So I'm in my recently opened right now, but if you want to go home, this is your folder structure. So you have sheets, which is like a personal environment that you can work on sheets, and then you have workspaces, and this is what I was talking about earlier. This is how you typically permission in Smartsheet. People have access to a workspace. So you try to keep multiple, so in this case, so there's multiple different folders in here. There's multiple different, reports and sheets and things like that all in here. And then the people that have access to it would be shared at the workspace level. So this is how Smartsheet recommends permissioning. You can do permissioning at a specific document level or a specific folder level, but the recommended practice is to have everyone, all the documents that are shared with a single group of people in a workspace. Okay, and it's literally called workspaces. We're not going to talk about resourcing in this one, although I'm happy to if you have any questions on that at another time. In order to, this is going to show my recently opened documents, and I can click them right here. I also have the ability to go ahead and pin it. If it pins, it's always going to show at the top. So in some cases, I have literally 40 different workspaces and I go to the same document every day. I'm going to pin it to the top so that I can always find it in my recently opened and I don't have to go through the structure to find the document that I'm looking for. Make sense?
How many can you pin? I realize that's
As
diminishing
many as
returns.
you want. So
Okay.
in one of my clients, I think I have 10 pinned. You can have as many as you want. Just obviously, as you go ahead and do that, it's going to push everything else down for recently. These are the ones that I've recently touched, right? If I pin all of them up here, I don't have as much room for what's recent. But again, you've got a pretty long panel here, so it's up to you. And then you also have favorites. So this is another way to do this, which is you can put a favorite on a specific workspace or a folder or a document. So they have two different ways of doing that. You can pin recently opened, and then you can also favorite them. So I actually typically use favorites. Okay. And this is the solution center. So you know how I mentioned that you don't have to start from scratch? You do not have to start from scratch. So what you can do here is they're called template sets, but this is in the solution center. You could go to, for example, projects, and you could find a template set that is for a PMO office or a project tracking roll up. And when you look at that, it's going to show you kind of what that has. It's all free. You can see the templates, you can see what that does, you can click learn more, and you'll get more information about what this looks like. And it'll show you a step-by-step guide of how to set it up. So in this case, this set includes a project roll-up dashboard, a project plan sheet, project milestone report, and at-risk report. And this is all configured for you. And then it'll give you kind of an idea of how to customize it, what pieces you have, and things like that. So my recommendation is if you're brand new to Smartsheet and you're rolling this out, I would go ahead and start with a template set, explore a couple of them, and then go from there. Okay. All righty. So with that said, we're going to actually go into an example. So from here, I'm going to go back. I'll go to recently. I'm going to click on new house. And in this example, I'm going to start from the grid view. Okay. What we've tried to do is a really, really basic project plan that hopefully you'll recognize some of the tasks on, which is I want to buy and sell a house. Okay. And what we've started with is we've started to list out the different tasks that we need to do in order to buy a new house and sell our old house. And we have a series of different columns of metadata here. Some of these are system columns, and some of these are columns that I'm just adding, and I can name anything I want and filter them as I want. So the task name that I mentioned is a primary column. This is the sheet's primary column. And this is the only column that you can indent tasks on, right? This column cannot be deleted. You always need to have a primary column no matter what type you do. Okay. The duration column is another column that is a system column. So this is going to be auto calculated based on the start and end dates. So start and finish dates. So these are system columns that are available. Start and finish are also system. You can create another column and calculate duration, but this is the system column version of that. Okay. Status is a pretty common column. I just want to show you when I'm doing a column, I can insert a column to the left or right, very similar to Excel here. I can rename the column. I can add a column description, right? So not started means it hasn't started. Probably would want to do a little bit better terminology than that, but this is an example. Now I have a little eye, I can roll over it, I can see, or I can click on it and see the information. This is especially helpful if you have project phases or a marketing status or something like that that you want to make sure that your users understand, okay? From the column information, again, I'm in the column section. I have a couple of different things, right? I can sort rows. I can lock the column, freeze the column, hide the column. I can also edit the column properties. This is the piece I wanted to mention to you. So I can do a drop down. I can do a drop down multi-select. I can restrict the drop down values. I can instead do symbols. So you have a couple of different symbols that you can use here. So status is one of the ones that we like to use a lot. They've also got direction, measures, priorities, things like that. For all of these symbols, you do still have the ability to use count, if functions, and things like that with Smartsheet. If you want to get into formulas and you're using visual symbols, I would say that Smartsheet has a fantastic community and a lot of great learning resources. I find myself Googling very easily. I don't even have to go into the community to find the information on how to create formulas with these visual symbols. So I wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of that. And then your auto system and numbers, these are the options we have. So you have auto number. You do have the ability to add prefix and suffixes. You can start at any number you want. So that can be super useful as well. Okay. Anything else I want to talk about in these fields? Probably not. So this is like a basic, here's how I list my tasks. You tab in. A couple of different things I mentioned. So you have 4 different basic views. So the grid view, you have the Gantt view, which is a grid view with this to the side. Same idea. You can kind of drag and drop and see this over here, right? The Gantt chart view. You also have the card view. So this is by cell both, so you can see that you're viewing by one of the metadata fields, but I could switch this if I wanted to vendor, for example, and look at these tasks by vendor or by contact or some other information, whatever information you have. I'm going to go back to here really quick because I want to configure this to be a I did auto number field, but I actually want this to be a drop down, single select, restrict so that I can view the information by that way. So I'm going to go back to my card view now, and I'm going to say I actually want to view this by status. So now I can see my tasks that are my complete, in progress, not started, and uncategorized, and there's nothing uncategorized right now. So this is super easy in terms of you can drag and drop functionality if you're used to a system like Trello or something like that. I know a lot of marketing companies, like this. This is only showing me right now just the title of the primary column, but over here on the right, I can actually see a full view and I can see the additional information here. And if I want to go even more complex than this, I can actually go over to the card view settings and I can choose what data shows up in this card view. So any of the information that's a column, you can configure this. If there are subtasks, you can add the checkbox field underneath so that you can see that there are subtasks underneath it. So you can see this here and I can expand it and these are the subtasks underneath it. Okay. The other thing I want to show you is that right now I'm filtering by level 1. So these are my primary column that have indented tasks underneath them. I can also do all levels where I then see both the level 1 and level 2 tasks, and I don't have any level 3 or level 4. So this can be useful to be able to roll it up for a high level stakeholder, showing them, what, hey, these are what's going on right now. Or for your team, maybe you don't need the big ones, you just need level 2 because this is what tasks are actually assigned out and you can do it this way. Does that make sense to everyone? All right. Any questions, please interrupt or use the chat if you feel more comfortable with asking tasks via chat. All right, so the other piece that I want to mention is the ability to add filters for quick filters. And so I've already created a filter, which is by, and what I'm doing is basically only looking at the metadata that's for by. And let me just click on this and I'm going to go ahead and edit it so I show you what a filter looks like. So I've named the filter. And I've marked this as share filter. So that means that anyone that comes into this sheet will be able to see this. If you want to have a filter just for yourself because you're interested in specific views, you can just unshare the filter. Then it's going to show up in your filters, but no one else that has access to this sheet. So there is a difference. So show rows that match all conditions. You can also have at least one condition. In this case, I'm showing by cell side, which is the column title, right? This is the metadata title. And then I can say is one of, and I've selected by or both, right? Or I could just select by, for example. Okay. I can add another condition to this if I wanted to. I can include parent rows so that they can see the parent rows as well for this. So there's a lot of different functionality here you can look into. I'm going to go back now to one other view. So we've looked at grid view, we've looked at Gantt view, we looked at card view, and now we'll look at calendar view. So this is the calendar view. There's not a lot of flexibility here. This is not my favorite in terms of a view, but it is something that they have available and some people really like the calendar view. So you can show it in a week instead or a couple weeks. So there are some functionality here, but not a lot what I like. Any questions on the views? Alrighty, so I'm going to go back and we're going to do the next piece. So on the right hand side, there's some additional functionality here, okay? So the first one is the ability to comment. You do have the ability to have conversations. You can have that conversation at a row level or a sheet level. And you do have the ability to mention people via the @ symbol. So if you're used to that in any of your other collaboration platforms, you have the ability to do that. You also have the ability to add attachments, again, at a row or a sheet level. So you can attach files to the sheet. You have some integration here between Google Drive, or you can just add a link via URL, or you can attach the document from your computer. So there are some options here as well. I've seen it used pretty well with both Google Drive and Dropbox. Interestingly, I'm from a Microsoft shop previously, but I haven't actually integrated it with OneDrive yet, but I would imagine that that one is solid as well. All right, you also have the ability to proof. This is one of the new functionality. If you are from a marketing team, they are in love with this. So this is the ability to edit documents, do your clips, screen charts, screenshots, and everything like that. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but definitely something that marketing teams like and has been a draw for this. And they just acquired, Smartsheet acquired several different marketing focused companies recently. So they're really making a push to be more competitive in the marketing space. You can go ahead and do update requests. Update requests, I'm going to show it to you from a different way. I don't actually do it from the right-hand side. I actually do it from the row level. So if I wanted to go here and I wanted to ask for an update request, this is how I typically do it. I send it to Melissa. Okay. And I can change it. It's an update request for loan pre-approval. I can update the message any way I want. I can CC myself. It's going to include columns and I can choose which columns I want. So let's say I don't want to include comments, for example, or I don't want to do duration or buy sell side. That's information is not useful. So I can adjust what information I'm sending from the sheet. And I can choose whether I want to do delivery now or if I want to send this update request on a regular basis. So for some project managers, they get an update request every week or so for enterprise plan or something else. Or I could say, you know what, deliver on this day at this time. So a lot of different options for getting update requests. So I'm going to go ahead and send this now because I want to show you what it looks like from an email. And I also want to show what it looks like from a notification. So that shows that there's an update request right here. Okay, and you can create a new request if you wanted to from here as well. Lots of flexibility. The other piece I want to mention is that you have some publish options here. So you can go ahead and only publish, for example, the read-only version, or you can make it editable or not editable based on these different components. So if you want to send this to a non-Smartsheet user, that would be one of the ways that you would want to do it is via publish. You can see the activity on the sheet, so who's made edits when, and you can go ahead and export that. One of the failings of Smartsheet, I'm going to be really brutally honest here, is that they do not have a robust versioning control right now. You can do backups on a weekly basis, automated, but you have to go through their support system in order to get a backup of a previous version. So while it does give you notification to save it, I want to be very clear. This is an area that I know is on their roadmap, but they do not have a robust versioning control where you can go back to a previous version easily. So heads up on that. You can see who made edits and when they made edits and what they edited, but you cannot just say, I want to go back to this version of the Smartsheet. Any questions on that? All right. Brutally honest, that's what you can count for me on. So this is a sheet summary. They have not done a ton with this, but I used to love this. Basically, this is information that you keep at a sheet level. So whether that might be like I keep my project manager, my tech lead, my business analyst, like you keep that information right here. And then you can pull that information from all of the different sheets that you have. So this is called a summary sheet. So project manager, for example, and I want to do a contact list. So I could say, okay, my project manager is Molly Yanis. I can add as many fields as I want, and then I can pull a report just from the sheet summary fields across multiple sheets. So I've seen some clients use this really well. I've certainly used this before, but there's definitely a not, they haven't done that much with this functionality in the last year or so. So I just want to be clear on that. And then Smartsheet recently acquired 10,000 Feet, which is a time tracking tool, resourcing tool that I used a couple of consultancies ago. So they are very well integrated with this. So if you're looking for a time tracking system that pulls in well with your PMIS system, you have this. You can certainly do time tracking via, a row on a sheet, but the user experience of 10,000 Feet is much more robust. So, any questions on what I've talked about so far? All right, so I'm going to move into, I'll do forms first and then automation second. So I can create or manage a form from this sheet right from here. So I'm going to go ahead and create a form. It's going to auto-populate right with all of the different fields that I already have in my sheet. This isn't a very robust sheet because it's just a demo. But I can just drag and drop which fields I want to include in my form. I can reorder the fields as wanted. I can add a header and a description under multiple sections. I can add a file upload to the bottom here. You can only add one file upload to a form. You can't add it under multiple things. Just a heads up on there. So one of the things that they've added in the last year was this concept of logic. So if I come here to this field and I click on it, right? It's status and it's a drop down list. If I wanted to go ahead and edit this, this is going to edit not only this form, but also the sheet because it's the same data type. So if you make an edit here and say, you know what, I want an option to put on hold, be aware that that is going to update your sheet as well. Okay. I can add a different label. So even though I'm saying status, you could say project status here. Okay, so you do have the ability to update it so that if, as a PM or as an administrator, you have a specific name you call it, but you want the user to have a different name, you can do that. You can add help desk here. Is your project started yet? And then you can make a one required or not. You can also make it hidden. So if you make it hidden, you can, what I do actually is, this is a workaround. So what I do is I can add a default, which is not started because they're putting it in, and then I can mark it as hidden. And now it goes into, when they submit this, it automatically updates it to not started. So that's the workaround they've done to be able to auto-populate a field. So you can put in the default value and then put in hidden. You can't put in hidden and then put the default value in. I don't know why. Oh, maybe they fixed this bug. Never mind, they fixed the bug. All right, so you can also display in a couple of different ways. So you can display in a drop down, you can display in vertical radio buttons or horizontal as well. So you can kind of change up your, I find the radio buttons useful if you want to multi-select. Okay, and then one last thing, I can add in logic here. So I can add logic and I can add logic at a specific field level. So when project status is in progress, show the following fields. Let's see here, start. Actually, that one's before it. So like then show comments. Okay. If it's not in progress, it's not going to show comments. And then you'll see it here that there's logic here. This is only going to show up if I have that. So I'm going to go back to this field. Oh, sorry. Click on the field piece. It's no longer, I've defaulted the status to not started, but it's not, and it's not required or not hidden. So I'm going to show you how this form looks out. All right, so this is my form. I'm calling it new house form. Okay. And I'm going to save this. And now I've got a couple of options. I can open the form or I can share the form. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and open the form so you can see what it looks like. So new house form, and I just want to show you. So here we've got project status. If I want to go to in progress, it's going to update it and add the field there. So you can go pretty complex with your logic, FYI. And then you can send a copy of my responses. Okay, so I'm just going to show test task. Sorry, guys, I keep having this up. Success, we've captured your response. So I want to go back really quickly. There's a little bit more functionality for forms. I've only been using the forms piece. You can go ahead and go to settings. That's going to allow you to choose what your form looks like. It's also going to be able to say if you want to add a message, either before or after. It can either email or it can go ahead and show success. Any questions about forms? That was a quick and dirty overview. All right, guys, we're going to go into automation. We're going to move quickly. So I can create workflow or manage a workflow. These are the popular workflow options. So record a date is a brand new one, which I really like because now I can record a date of when something moved from not started to in progress, which I like, or record a date when something closed. So that's a new functionality they just added literally in the last month, which is kind of exciting. But you can set a reminder, you can alert someone, you can set up an approval workflow. That's what we'll do for right now. You also have the ability to send an alert on Slack or Microsoft Teams. So those are also two newer functions. So if you already use Slack or Microsoft Teams, you can use that collaboration system to get notified on. So I'm going to go ahead and set up an approval workflow. So this is going to create a basic structure for me. So this is where I'm saying that I'm technical enough to be dangerous, right? You do not need to be a developer for this, but this is something that if you're not familiar with setting workflows and the logic of it, you probably want to do a couple of their, their community help things to kind of walk you through this. So your options for triggers are when a date is reached, when a row is added, changed, or just added. Those are the only triggers you have, okay? So you don't have, let's see here. So when a date is reached, you can run it once, or you are able to run it in a reoccurring schedule in the same way you are in Outlook. So it's very similar to your Outlook functionality or even Google functionality, Google Calendar meeting functionality that you might have. So you can repeat at a specific time. Okay. You only can do it on the hours, but again, a lot of flexibility here. You can do when rows are changed or added, and you can select which field changes. So if you change the status, right, and it changes to in progress, right, then run the workflow. And you have a couple of options here I want to mention to you. So when you run the workflow, you can do it when triggered. So like immediately as soon as it's saved and it's there, then that gets triggered. Or you can set it to hourly, daily, weekly. The reason why is because Smartsheet will consolidate all of the same types of notifications into a single email, which makes it a lot easier, especially for, more executive stakeholders and just not getting overwhelmed by notifications. Okay. For today, I'm going to do this. So this is the trigger field, and then you have conditions field, and be aware that you can add multiple conditions, right? So we talked about otherwise, so you can set up a whole nother action associated with a different condition. Okay. You can also add another action or add another condition. So these plus buttons are how you add a little bit more complex. Okay. I'm going to delete this for right now. That's fine. Okay, so for condition, we're just going to say, you know what I mean? And you don't need to have a condition. So you can just say when the status is in progress. But let's say I want to say the status is in progress and finish is, and you can say finish is greater than a specific date, but you could also say finish is in the past. So if something's moved in progress and the finish is in the past, then we're going to go ahead and request approval. And here I can request approval to specific people, or I can request to contacts that are in a cell. Now, the example I'm using doesn't have any contact fields, but this is especially useful if you have, for example, who is assigned to, who the task owner is, who the project owner is, who the approver is in a contact field in your sheet. Then you can say whoever the contact is in that specific field. So I like this a lot, but for right now, we're just going to send it to specific people. Actually, we'll send it to everyone in the sheet. And then you can customize. So they can either approve it or decline it. And you can do that via an email. You can customize the message. One of the nice things about Smartsheet is you can go ahead and pull in specific information by using the double brackets, and they explain it to you right here. So I can say, let's see here. What is our, I don't even remember what our titles are. we had status. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and customize the message and put status in here. Okay, just to show you that we can do it. Okay, example. Okay. Now the other thing is that I can include all the fields, or I can include specific fields. So here I can say what fields I want to include in this email. So I'm just going to pull a couple of ones here. Comment, start, finish. Okay. So again, you would do more here, and I can then add an action or a condition if someone declines. So if someone declines, I want to say, you know what I mean, alert someone, and I'm going to alert Molly. Okay. Or if it's approved, I want to add an action and I want to record a date. So record a date. I don't have any date columns. Let's see here. Well, let's save this as is and then we can go back, but I didn't include a date column here. But you get the idea. You can record the date that something's approved. Okay, so now I have created a workflow. So I'm going to do a couple different things here. I'm going to insert a column. I think I'm going to insert a column. Interesting. There we go. I don't know why. Oh, I'm in a, oh my goodness, I'm in a report. I have no idea why I'm having trouble right now. I'm going to skip this because I have no idea why I'm having trouble doing the basic functionality right here. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change something to, what did we say, in progress, right? So I'm going to change something. Okay, there we go. I'm going to change something to in progress and I'm going to save it. It'll save when you get out. So I should start getting, oh, and it is past due, which is this is not. So let's move this to in the past. Okay. I'm going to move this to, let's do this one actually. So we'll do here, we're going to go ahead and do in the past again. I'm going to move this to in progress and I will save so that we can get a notification. All right, and then up here, I'm going to insert a column to the left and I'm going to make a date field and call it date. And then I'm going to go ahead, or approval date, and then I'm going to insert a column to the left and I'm going to add a contact field, which is owner. Okay. Alrighty, so while we're waiting for that notification to come through, I'm going to go ahead and go to a form that I have already created, and then we'll talk about this. So this is a report, not a form, a report. In order to create a report or to create anything, you can create new. And when you go ahead and create new, you can create a project, you can create it from cards, a task list, form, report, etc. So you can create things from multiple places. You can create things from the Solution Center. You can create things from over here. If you're here, you can create them over here. Where you create it, if I created it and I'm in this workspace, it is going to automatically create what I'm looking for in the workspace that I'm in. So I'm just going to do example report. So usually the easiest thing to do is to create the report where you are expecting it to be. But if you needed to, you can go ahead and drop this, drag and drop, and it won't be shared anymore. So I just dragged and dropped this to my sheet information. Okay, and I just created an example report. So I'm going to go to the new demo report, and what I've done here is, actually, you know what, let's go from the start, the easiest thing. Has anyone here already created a report in Smartsheet? No. Okay. So the first thing you need to do is you need to determine what your data source is, and your data source is always a sheet. So I'm going to pull from the new house sheet that we've been using, for example, and then I'm going to pull in what information, what columns of data I want. So this is a way to show a subset of information. So I'm going to say that I want to show the start date and the finish date, and I want to show duration and comments. Okay. So the next thing that you do once you select the columns is you select the filter information. So in this case, I want to filter and I want to say only ones that have a status of, and then here you can say is equal to or is one of. So I use is one of, and it'll give you what the columns options are. So I want to only look at things that are status of not started, for example, and apply. So now this is going to filter the information. The other thing that Smartsheet can do in reports, right, is you can go ahead and group information. So if I wanted to group by, I don't have good date here, but like, let me say I want to group by buy or sell side. I can do that. And then it's going to show, okay, these are in both, these are in buy, and these are in sell. And this group functionality is something that is, again, newer in the last few months with Smartsheet. And then you also have the ability to summarize. So this is going to be some like automatic formulas that you might want to use. So if I want to say duration, I can count them, I can sum them, I can average them, minimum and maximum. So if I want to say an average duration, for example, it's going to give me what my average duration is, both for each of these. So for sell, it's 8, for buy here. So again, easy, quick formulas that you can do to get some metrics. Okay. And then you also have the ability to sort. Any questions here? In a report, you can look at it in a grid view, a Gantt view, or a calendar view as well. All right. I just wanted to show you an example of a report I created. So in here, I say new house demo. I've added a filter and I say the finish is in the past because it's past due. But if you're looking at this report, do you see why this might not actually be accurate? So I'm saying past due tasks. Why do you feel like this report isn't showing me the information that I actually wanted to see?
Because some of them are already complete.
Exactly. So I would go ahead here, I would add a filter, I would add a condition here, I would go to status and I want to say, okay, status is complete. I can say is one of, and I can say is complete. Oh, is not one of. Is not one of, and I don't want it to be complete. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to click OK, and there you go. If you want to go more granular, you can add as many conditions as you want, and you can use and or conditions. So I could add a call, add a condition, and I can move it from outside of this, right? So I can add a new filter group that can be and or. So you can do multiple levels here of filtering of data. Again, we have a really simple data set for this example, but there's a lot of information here. Okay. So we talked about reports, we talked about sheets, we talked about automations, we talked about forms. The last one that I want to talk about is a dashboard. We are not going to have a lot of time for this because I am going to have a hard stop today, but let's just look at this. So I'm going to create a new here, and I'm going to go ahead and create a dashboard. FYI, Work Apps is their low-code app solution. It literally just got released on the 15th. I haven't even had a chance to go in and explore yet, but I'm very excited about it because they do, it's basically going to be forms on steroids. It's going to give you a lot more information there, but they do have the ability to create low code apps now, but I can't, I'm sure that I'll be doing a webinar on that in the future. All right, so I'm going to create a new dashboard, demo dashboard. Okay. And when I'm creating a dashboard, I've got a lot of different options. They're called widgets. I can add widgets. You can add a metric widget, chart widget, shortcut, which means that you can add a shortcut to any other Smartsheet content type, for example. So you could do it to a specific sheet that you access a lot. You can add report, images, titles, rich text. So title, super easy, rich text exit, demo, dashboard. And then very similar, very easy to configure here. Very easy drag and drop functionality here. Let's use a report example. I'm going to select the report. Again, picking where the data is. I'm going to go ahead and pick our example report that we just did. I'm going to say, you know what, I don't want the Gantt chart in this report, so I'm going to go ahead and hide the Gantt chart. I can display the title on this report. I can change the title on this report. I have advanced options. Advanced options says that I can either say when this widget is clicked on in the dashboard, it does nothing, or I can say that it opens the source report, or I can say that it opens a different Smartsheet item or a URL. So options for how to interact with the dashboard once it goes there, okay? I'm going to click OK. I can again resize this to my heart's content. You will notice that I cannot resize the column width. This is going to be in the sheet itself. Okay, I can only change the column width here. I can change the size of the widget in terms of what I show, but I can't change this width. If I want more space, I would need to go into the actual report and update the spacing here, and then it'll automatically update the dashboard. Any data that's updated on the report or in the sheet will also update in the dashboard. Any questions there? All right. We didn't talk about data today. I'm not going to get to it, but adding formulas, doing some metrics, being able to go ahead and put in a chart. I don't really have, it's not going to show me anything because I don't have data right now. Let me see here. Do I have one that has enough data in it? No, so it's not going to be able to give me the chart options because I don't have good valid data, but you have options of pie chart and bar charts and things like that. You have the ability to update different colors, adding legends and things like that. So you've got a lot of flexibility here, but you pull it from reports that are metrics that you use formulas in, which are very similar to the formulas you use in Excel. If you're comfortable in Excel formulas, you'll be fine with metrics in Smartsheet. All right, that is what I really wanted to get to today. Let me just bring it up really quick. I didn't allow a ton of time for questions, but I'm hoping that you interrupted if you did. I'm going to have more questions. I'm going to have more webinars. I try to do 1 to 2 webinars every month. So I'm going to be speaking. I thought I was speaking on February 2nd. It says February 6th.
It's the 2nd.
Okay, I think I'm speaking on February 2nd at 6:30 through PMI, and I'll be speaking about project intake and prioritization. Feel free to register. If you want to get receive updates on upcoming webinars, you can follow us on LinkedIn. You can join our mailing list. I'm all over LinkedIn. If you're interested in talking one-on-one, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I have my calendar. We'll send this out. You can contact me. Any thoughts before we end for today? That was a really quick and dirty Smartsheet overview. We'll probably be doing more specific things down the road. Did you learn anything?
I definitely appreciate what was shared. Obviously, there's a lot of content to blow through there in an hour. I really like the visuals that Smartsheet has going for it over Jira, and just the workflow and automation seems like that's really cool. As part of a larger company that has multiple systems and we're all trying to make it work, but none of them work exactly the way you want them to work. This seems to incorporate a lot of the pieces that you kind of wish some of those systems had, but it's all in one place.
They also have a Jira integration. It's on the more expensive side, but they have an API. So if you have specific data in Jira that you want to bring in, you can do that. But I'm actually implementing a Jira integration right now for one of my enterprise clients. So they do have very robust capabilities for integrations, but that's on the more expensive side. So if you're looking for a lower cost solution, there are options like via their API to pull specific data in from Jira. So Terry, anything from you? Did you learn anything? You'd been in Smartsheet before.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely helpful. It took quite a few notes just of like functionalities that I knew that already existed, but how like I didn't realize all of the capabilities within those. So that I definitely think is interesting. We do a lot of we launch a lot of new programs, so I'm really trying to find a way to to keep track of not only, you know, the beginning but also the end, like what did we, like all the way through product life cycle, I guess, management. So that's kind of just
The
looking for different
record date.
workflows and different, yeah.
The record date functionality they literally added 2 weeks ago, and I'm in love with it because I have done so many workarounds to like capture that information and be able to show slippage without having to like remember to put it in there. And that new record date field is like, oh, I love it. So thank you so much for your time today. I hope we cross paths again, and we will get out a recording as well as a this deck in case you're interested, and yeah, go from there. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.